money really is exchange when value is created. And when I think about it that way, it takes all of the negativity out of it, because if my focus becomes, how can I create value for someone to such a degree that they are willing to exchange money for it, then that aligns with my entire belief system, right? How can I be a blessing to someone else? And in exchange for that, they are willing to give some of their money.
Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to be here with Tamara Jackson. Tamara, welcome to What the Fundraising.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you and hopefully to share something that will help the audience.
Yes, I'm so excited to dive in. Why don't we start with you just telling everybody a little bit about you and your work, and then we'll dig in.
Yeah. So one of the things I think that's really cool about this show is that the whole thought process is bring people who are not maybe in the nonprofit world to share their expertise. So that made me feel right at home. I am a former corporate veteran, spent 25 years in the banking space. And half of that time I was in the side hustle culture. So I've had a number of different entrepreneurial pursuits, but I've always had a passion for giving back. You know, that's something that was instilled in me very young. So regardless of what role I had, I was always looking for ways to volunteer. As an entrepreneur, I've done projects to give back, and I'm a person that not only gives time, but also gives money. So this is a topic that we're talking about today that is very near and dear to my heart. And one of my passions, the reason why I love operating at the intersection of doing good and business, is to show that we can do both. So a lot of the gifts, skills, and talents that I've developed in both arenas, in corporate and in the entrepreneurial world, I love being able to put those to use to advance great causes. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to unpack that and talk with the audience today.
Yeah, I love that. When I was learning a bit about you, one of the things that I got so excited about was this blend of ethical sales strategies while also kind of unlocking, I think you said like hidden potential. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
For growth. And I feel like there is so much of that inside the nonprofit sector, but this sector is also plagued by a lot of scarcity beliefs that I think hold us back from being as creative and imaginative and abundant in our thinking about what might be possible. And I think some of that has to do with some maybe deep-seated feelings around, can money be really intertwined in the movement of money with my ethics and my values? And particularly when we see in our world a lot of ways in which money can corrupt ethics and values, I think nonprofit folks are constantly kind of grappling with that. So why don't we start like at a high level and just tell us, like, how do you think about that intersection? What are some guiding principles for folks who want to adopt maybe more like a kind of a better money mindset, not to use that like overly used terminology, but are maybe feeling held back around the ethical side of it?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that helped me, and I can identify with this way of thinking, growing up in church, there was a lot of talk about money and what it does. And some people would even say money is the root of all evil. And what I had to learn over time is that money really is exchange when value is created. And when I think about it that way, it takes all of the negativity out of it, because if my focus becomes, how can I create value for someone to such a degree that they are willing to exchange money for it, then that aligns with my entire belief system, right? How can I be a blessing to someone else? And in exchange for that, they are willing to give some of their money, right? And I think if we can start thinking of it that way, then it actually fuels the mission that many of the listening audience has. The reality is that in order to fund that cause, in order to make a difference, you need money to do it, right? There's a lot of things that we can do without money, but at the end of the day, to accomplish the grandest vision that we have, we're going to need money to do that. So I think the question becomes, how can I create value for people to such a degree that they are willing to donate to the cause that I have. And when we look at it that way, it totally flips the conversation. And the organizations that I've seen do this well really start with that question is, okay, what does the audience that I want to be a part of this mission and to support me financially, what is it that they are looking for? And how can I deliver that? And if you give something that someone truly values, they don't have a problem financially supporting what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And that definitely shifts. Like that's something I talk about a lot in fundraising is like recognizing the value that we're bringing to the table, right? Because whether that value is an experience or a feeling or a validation of somebody's identity and what they get to believe about themselves, those are all things that are really valuable to us as humans. And it sort of requires us to untangle this belief that like money is the only thing of value. Because I feel like that's some of what happens in those moments where we don't realize that it is actually a value exchange and we're bringing value to that relationship too, is we sort of like shortcut and we're like, well, money is the only thing of value and that person has money and I need money. So they're the one with the value and I'm trying to figure out how to get that value from them. And that is just never going to feel good.
Yeah, no, 100%. As a person that actually enjoys being generous, it actually makes me feel good to support causes that I believe in. So I would encourage our viewing and listening audience, don't downplay that. There are people that genuinely love to give, and you are creating opportunities for them to do that. I think the key, though, is to really understand what, as you have hinted to, what is the motivation behind their giving? And if you can really understand that, which you're only going to be able to do, putting my business hat on, you're only going to be able to do that by spending time with them. Not in a setting to necessarily get a donation, but just spending time with them, understanding their motivations, their lifestyle. How did they get to where they are and why is it important for them to give back? The more that you understand that, the more that you will be able to create value for them. This takes me back to an event that I attended last year, and I had the honor of sitting there as someone that had given millions and millions of dollars to a single cause, kind of unpack their philosophy on giving. And one of the things that I walked away from in that conversation is that one of the things that really motivated him to give, in this instance, it was to a church project, is because that pastor was willing to spend time with him. He was willing to go to dinner with him. He was willing to get to know him as a person. And what unfortunately had happened in so many instances is that people were so focused on getting the donation that they forgot to see that he was a person that had challenges just like everyone else does. Yeah, maybe money wasn't something that he had to deal with, but there were other things that were going on in his life. And because that pastor was willing to get to know him on a personal level, it became a no-brainer for him to support the church's cause.
Yeah, I love that. And that sort of like interconnection and this reminder that money is one way we express our values. And so we're always looking for opportunities to do that. And I think sometimes in the nonprofit sector, we kind of take for granted what it gets to look like to live every single day in our values, doing the work that's the most important to us. And that in fundraising, we're giving people an opportunity to do that in a way that sort of like works for them and aligns with them. What do you think, like when you think about kind of ethical sales strategies, I feel like there's a piece of this that is like an unlearning piece, like that kind of has to happen at first. So I'm curious, like, what are some of the things that people do or feelings that people have that make sales unethical or feel unethical that need to be kind of like undone for folks who then want to adopt more ethical practices?
Well, I think that the number one thing is to take away the image that many of us have of sales. Because I think whenever we mention the word sales, the vast majority of people get an image of someone that's kind of a shyster, someone who's getting over on someone else, someone that is pushing someone into something that they really don't want. And if that is the image that comes to mind, and we've all had those experiences, so I'm not saying that that doesn't ever happen, but if that's how we look at the entire profession, if that's how we look at the process, then it's going to be really difficult to sell anything because we're coming into that experience with very negative feelings, feelings that would make us literally want to run away from those situations and not be a part of them. If you're a person that values people, that wants to help others, the last thing that you're going to want to be associated with is something that pushes people to do something they don't want to do. So I think what we have to do is start to think of sales as service. And it goes back to that thought process of this is value creation. So I'm actually serving this person by introducing them to something that is going to help them reach their goals. And I think if we can embrace that line of thinking, I'm not pushing something on them that they don't want, that they don't need. No, this is something that they actually value. And all I am doing is introducing that solution to them and giving them an opportunity to choose if this is the best path for them.
I love what you're saying. And I'm curious, how does this change, this sort of like mindset and way of building a relationship in sales, change how we let people go? Like, because when I'm hearing this, I'm like, okay, this feels really good as a salesperson too, right? To say like, if this isn't the right fit for them, right? You're looking for alignment. And if there isn't alignment, if this isn't going to solve their problem, if this isn't the right fit for them, okay, no problem. Like, I want you to get your problem solved, right? And maybe it's me, maybe it's my tool, maybe it's not. And then I feel like we get scared that we're not going to hit our numbers, or we get in our head about our own self-doubt, or we feel our own sense of scarcity. And we start to say things or behave in ways or put pressure on people that kind of does the opposite of what you're talking about. So talk to me about that nuance, like not just how people can show up ethically, maybe in that first moment, but then what does follow-up look like that stays in alignment with this kind of service perspective?
Great question. And I think it starts with making sure that we're really getting clear on the objection as we're having that conversation. And that's whether it is a person, or in my world, we often leverage technology. But I think where we often go wrong is we just get a no. We don't probe any further. We internalize that as rejection. And now we're kind of down in the dumps. This didn't work out. Let me move on to the next one. But the reality is that all of us that are watching and are listening have experienced moments where we actually did want something. We believed that we needed help, but there were still some questions about whether this is the right solution. Is this the right person? Is this the right time? So I think one of the things that will help us is to ask some additional questions in a way that's not confrontational, but just clarifying. So, for example, something as simple as, just to clarify, is this about fit or about timing? And allowing the person to say, oh, you know what? Now that you mention it, I actually have a lot going on right now and I can't process this. So maybe it would be better if we revisit this at a different time. So now we have more information, and now we know it's not never we're going to do it. It's just not the right time. So now I can put it in my follow-up queue for 60 days from now, circle back, and now see if this is the right time. You know, I think all of us have had experiences where with time, we were able to get clarity about what we wanted to do and who we wanted to do it with. So another thing that I would encourage people to do is don't forget what it's like to be a consumer, to be the person that's not selling, right? Because all of these things play out in our own lives. But for some reason, when we're the one kind of move the sales process along, we forget what it's like to be on the receiving end. We've all said no to someone and, gave a quick answer, but there was really more to it. There's always been times where we didn't do it now, but 6 months from now we did that. Don't forget that the person that you're looking to get a financial commitment from is a person, and they have stuff going on in their life. And the best way that you can help them and do it in an ethical way is to really care about them, their needs, and get clear on what's the best next step. Is it to release them or is it to circle back at a later time?
Yeah. Okay. I love that. What do you do then if they don't respond? Where do you put that person? So you ask them a clarifying question like that. You never hear back. Do you close it? Do you say, okay, they're not engaged, they're not interested? What's that process like?
Yeah, so I think it's a combination, right? So I like to think of it rather than closing it as a pause. So maybe the conversation is paused here, and now I have an opportunity to continue to serve them in a different way. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is to remember, again, consumer behavior. So consumer behavior is I'm still going to, if I'm even remotely interested, I'm still going to follow you on social. I'm still going to join your email list to see what you are putting out into the world. And those are still inputs into my decision making process. So maybe I'm not continuing to send you emails and text messages and ringing your phone at this moment, but I'm continuing to show up in the places that you would be looking for additional information. And I'm trying to speak to that person, not just the person that's ready to sign up and ready to move forward right now, but I'm speaking to that person that's on the kind of the periphery and still making their decisions. What can I do to serve them through the content that I put out into the space that's going to help nudge them along that journey? And then I can follow back up after I have continued. What's amazing now is we have all of these tools. We know who's opening our emails. We know who's checking their text messages. Now you have insight. You can see, wait, this person that told me no is still checking out all of these things. So that's giving me more information. What emails are they clicking on? That's telling me a little bit more about what they need additional information on, perhaps, right? So I like to think of it as a pause. I have had instances in the number of businesses that I've led over the years. It's been as many as 3 years. I started a conversation with someone 3 years ago, and they're just now getting to the point that they're ready to move forward. And it's been amazing to me the number of times that they said, well, it was this email that you sent, or I saw something that you posted on social media, and it just so happened to hit them at the time that they were ready to take action.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And I mean, I can imagine also that part of what they're responding to is valuable content that you're sending out, right? It's not that you've sent 47 sales follow-ups in 3 years, but they're being reminded of who you are and what you offer, and it's resonating with something either they're worried about or they're thinking about or wondering. Right. And that's part of what is like the prompt is sort of changing, right? And so it's hitting them at the right time, but it's also you're getting into their consciousness in a variety of different ways so that they're kind of figuring out where their alignment point lives with you.
That's absolutely right. So I'm thinking about a campaign that we're working on right now for one of our clients, and we're doing exactly that. So on Tuesday, it's about thought leadership. So how are you different from everyone else in the space? That's another thing that we must remember. There's always competition, whether it's direct competition, another organization that's doing the exact same thing, or some alternative that our ideal audience could choose to support, right? So what are some of the other things that are going on in that space that maybe we have a different take on, we have a different belief system, there's a uniqueness to what we do? How do we showcase that in one email a week to help that audience understand there is something different about the way that we do business? And then in our follow-up email later in the week, it is going to lean more towards getting people to raise their hand. That's the way I like to think of it, and say, hey, I'd like more information. I'd like to learn more, but it's in order, right? We're leading with that thought leadership first. And even that email that's going to come later in the week, it's not just going to be a blatant sales pitch. We're going to create value even in that email to help them understand what are the things that I need to look for in the partner that I want to work with on this. Let me make sure that I'm answering those questions in the email. And if, I love the word that you use, Mallory, if there's alignment, then that person should want to raise their hand because they feel like this is the best decision for them.
Yes. Okay. I love that. And I think this is so important for fundraisers because I don't know if you've heard about like donor fatigue or this myth of donor fatigue. And in my book, I talk about how, like, donor fatigue is not a thing where they're just fatigued because of the amount of communication, but they might be fatigued by how you're communicating.
That's right.
Right? Like and that actually doesn't have to do with cadence, right? It's content. It's like, we all have that friend who only asks us for things. And I am fatigued after the second interaction, right? Like, I am already fatigued.
Right.
But then we have relationships with other people where there's so much back and forth and relationship building, and we're going deeper and we're learning things, and it's reciprocal and all these things. And it's like, I don't ever think about the amount of times I've done something for them because I'm like in relationship with them, and I don't mind how much they're reaching out or think about that in any ways. And so I love what you're saying, because I think you're kind of validating and verifying this point, which is that donor fatigue is not how much you're emailing them or talking to them or being in communication with them, but what are you saying? And are you fatiguing them just because of it's just asks? And then we say, oh, we don't want to bother them. We don't want to bother them until we really need something. And then we're going to email them 4 emails about this urgent campaign. And then we don't want to bother them. And really what's happening is kind of the opposite of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. Is often what we do is we attract what we don't want with our behavior. So we want people to be supportive and to believe in what we're doing, but our actions don't align with that. And then we end up pushing people away. I am a person that subscribes to email lists all the time. If it's something that I'm interested in, that's one of the ways that I get a sense of whether or not this is something that I will invest in at some point. And so to your point, I don't think, oh my gosh, they're sending me too many emails, until they start sending too many of the emails that are just asked. But if I am being blessed in some way, if I'm learning something from what I'm reading, if it's helping me to think differently about things, even if it's just an amazing story, I think for my friends and clients that I work with in a nonprofit space, I think they discount often the value of storytelling. Like hearing a story of someone that has been touched by the organization, man, that does my heart so good. It's like, oh my gosh, they really are making a difference. And it makes me want to be a part of making that happen for more people. So maybe if you told more stories about the impact that you're making, that would allow you to share how you're touching people in a very tangible way. And it's not a hard ask. It's just telling the story of what you're doing.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have any recommendations? I want to kind of double click on that scenario, for example. Do you have any recommendations on, okay, in an email like that really is storytelling, maybe there's even a video in there or a message from the CEO. Do you recommend in an email like that there is a PS if you want to support more people like Harry or something like that, and it can be in a soft way,
Absolutely.
an invitation to get involved? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, or do you feel like we need some like purist touch points that kind of don't mention at all the opportunity to go deeper?
Well, I certainly think there's always more than one way to do something. So I've seen both work well. I would lean towards the side of that soft opportunity, just providing a link for those that are touched by the story. Because what can happen, let's play the scenario out when there's nothing there, is they could be so touched, they could want to do something, and now they have to take another step. Like, where do I need to go if I want to support this? And the reality of our lives is they're so busy. And so now I'm like, oh, I don't know if I have time to do this. I might come back to it. And what unfortunately happens in a lot of those instances is I never make it back because I get distracted and pulled into all of the other things. So I think for the person that is touched and wants to take action immediately, let's make it easy for them. So what you're hinting to, Mallory, I think is really important. It's all about how that ask is positioned. It shouldn't come on super strong. And then if you've enjoyed this article, please donate $10 today, right? Like it's more of creating an opportunity for those that would like to take that step to support. It could be as simple as if the person that's highlighted in the story, let's use a name like John, if you want to be a part of us helping people like John, here is a link where you can donate. It can be something really simple. I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves too to come up with this super slick way of asking people. And what it really should be thought of, invitation. If you're aligned with this, I want to invite you to be a part of it. If we use that thought process, I think we'll position it in a way that those that are truly touched by it will take the action that you're looking for.
I love that recommendation, because I think what you're saying here, like something I'm taking away from what you're saying, is like, you need to be clear with whatever that call to action is. But the moment you're kind of overthinking, am I exactly saying this? You've kind of lost the whole point of the email, which was to provide value and share a story, right? The moment we're obsessing about, then all of a sudden our intentions have completely shifted and they aren't actually about being value-based anymore. Now it's a fundraising email. And now we're going to lose that whole authenticity around just trying to storytell and create more organic opportunities for people to get involved.
Absolutely. Like the mindset that you are in when you are creating the content plays a huge role in how you're going to craft it and ultimately how it's going to be received. Because we've all had interactions where we felt in our heart of hearts that even though the person was saying A, B, and C, that's not really what they were about. And that comes across in email and text on social media as well. So if you have to spend some time in a quiet place, maybe you need to take a walk, play with your dog, whatever helps you, do that before you sit down and start writing that so that you are able to come from a pure place.
That is such important advice. People are going to feel like I planted you here just
Maybe you did.
It's just such important advice, because I feel like I talk about this a lot with alignment fundraising. Like, alignment can't just be a strategy. It has to be an intention, because the moment it's a strategy, exactly, you can feel it. You can just feel it. And so I so appreciate ending on that note. I could talk with you for so much longer, but tell everybody, we'll give them just a little taste where they can find you, follow you, work with you, all the things.
Awesome. So thank you for the opportunity to share. The platform that I hang out on most social media wise is LinkedIn. So please connect with me there. In terms of the websites, if you're interested in learning more about ethical sales, how we leverage technology to be able to allow you to generate more revenue without investing more time, I'd love for you to visit us at leadreviver.pro. Mallory, thank you so much for the opportunity to spend time with your audience.
Thank you so much for joining me today.